Hello and welcome to the Whisky.com news on the 25th of February 2020. And we have a number of very interesting news. And we start off with one of the favorites of the smoky whiskies, the Ardbeg brand. And this year, this was the last committee release from or special release from Ardbeg. And this year, the release is called the Ardbeg Blaaack. And the Ardbeg Blaaack is called Ardbeg Blaaack because of the sheep. The Ardbeg Blaaack is honoring all the sheep on the island, and as the sheeps always go bah, they actually called it black with 3 A's. And yeah, it's gonna be a 50.7% ABV whiskey for the committee release. That's gonna be released on the 3rd of March. And the standard bottling will be released on the 30th of May and will be probably available all around the globe. Yeah, Ardbeg will have the Ardbeg Day on the 30th of May. Yeah, and that's when the normal release will be out. Then we have Johnnie Walker. I've already talked a bit about the Johnnie Walker, that Johnnie Walker is becoming 200 and they're gonna celebrate it somehow. And now we know what they start off with celebrating. They are working together with the Dick Institute, and they are gonna be showing some artifacts of the early ages of the Walker family. For those of you who don't know, the Walkers started up with a grocery store in a small town in Scotland, and after they sold their farm, and they came into the blending industry and the whiskey industry with this grocery store and built up an empire about that. If you can't go to Edinburgh, if you're not living in Great Britain or in Scotland, then there is a nice video on this channel. It's called the Johnnie Walker Archive or the Diageo Archive. And I'm really going into depth about the history, and I've also shown a few of these old artifacts of handwritten stuff from this grocery store. Then we go on to the Longrow. Longrow is bringing out a new whiskey. It's called the Longrow Red. It has 51.6% ABV. It's 13 years old, 3 years finish in Cabernet Sauvignon Fässer, and is limited to 9,000 bottles and probably available near you or at your local dealer. And then we have news from Ireland. We're finished with Scotland. The Kilbeggan Distillery. I've already talked about this, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, that they have a very special release with 2% oat in it, a new mash bill with 2% oat in it, and now they're releasing it also worldwide, not just in the United States. And then we have a very expensive news again, about expensive whiskey. Kind of very often now these days. And now they're selling a Midleton very rare, and they're releasing the chapter 1 of the Silent Distillery collection, and it's gonna be a smoky Midleton. So that has never been before, as the distillery only produces non-smoky, non-peated whiskey. And they actually experimented between 1964 and 1967, 1964 and 1974. And they experimented with this peat smoke, and they just put it in the cask, stored it somewhere, and they never thought about releasing it. And now they're gonna do it with a special release. It's gonna be only 48 bottles worldwide, and at a cost of 750,000 Great British pounds. So very expensive stuff, and I highly doubt that many of these bottles will be opened. Then we have news for America out there. The Jack Daniel's brand is in the news because there is a new documentary coming out, and it's going to be called Chasing Whiskey. It's going to be a story about Jack Daniel's, his life, and about untold stories about Jack, and probably a lot about his distillery. It's going to be airing in America on the 11th of May. And it's going to be in over 850 theaters. So probably if you live in the US, it's going to be one of the theaters near you. But it's going to be airing only on the 11th of May. So if you're interested in that kind of film, then you might get yourself a ticket before it's too late. Then we have Australian whiskey in the news. We don't have that quite often because the Australian whiskey industry is not booming, so there are not many distilleries there. But the Australian Whiskey Holdings is selling the Overeem brand back into the family that created the Overeem distillery in 2007. So the daughter, Jane Sawford, gets back the distillery, and hopefully she's gonna bring up the brand, and we're gonna hear more about the Overeem distillery and the Overeem whiskey. I don't know, because we've never heard that whiskey before. It's a Tasmanian whiskey, and from what I know, Tasmania is in the very south of Australia. So yeah, that was it. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.